Welcome into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, simulcast live on Twitter as well. Week number 6, we're hitting every single game Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We got our leadoff hitter here, Jeff Nadu at Jeff Nadu. He's got the Sit Down podcast as well. Jeff, always good to talk with you, buddy. How you feeling? Welcome on in.
Great. Looking forward to another great week of college football. Thank you for having me, Drew.
Absolutely, Jeff. Well, let's get after it here. We got Thursday, October 3rd, top of the card. We're going down in rotation order, 3:03, 3:04, 7 o'clock Eastern kick time. Texas State and Troy. We are seeing 57 and a half being the total, minus 13 or minus 13 in the hook. That is the Bobcats of Texas State as the road favorite. Troy's got some quarterback injuries here, Jeff. Do you like anything top of the card?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. Obviously, we're going to start seeing a lot more Sun Belt games, middle of the week, towards the end of the week on Thursdays, that sort of thing. Here's the problem. Texas State, over the last 10 meetings, has not beaten Troy. Troy has completely owned this team, even last year. 31-13, Troy got the job done. That was a pretty good Texas State team. For whatever reason, Texas State just hasn't been able to figure out Troy's defense. Now, I will throw in, this has been a much better Troy team over the last 5 to 6 to 7 years. This is not a particularly good one this year, and this is a pretty good Texas State team. The issue that I have is Texas State just isn't good enough defensively to me. This is a group that lost last week, gave up 40 points to a good Sam Houston team, gave up a bunch of points to Arizona State, gave up a lot of points to Lamar as well. While you did say that Troy's struggling from a quarterback standpoint, and they are. They can't move the football right now. They can't really run the ball either. I think the goal is for this group, run the football. They did have 201 rushing yards last week against UL Monroe. I think the goal for them is to keep the football out of the hands of the opponent. That said, I still wouldn't back Troy here. I'm not exactly getting a good number. If I'm getting 17, maybe I have some interest, but at 13, there's really no value to me, especially for a team that in Texas State just hasn't really beaten Troy very often.
Nice start here, Jeff, as we got a doubleheader on Thursday, 3:05, 3:06, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. It's Sam Houston State and UTEP. We are seeing Sam Houston minus 10 or minus 10 in the hook as the road favorite. There is a minus 9.5 out there as well. 50 being the total, so we're heading to El Paso here. Sam Houston State at UTEP. They're laying about 10 here.
Yeah, it's pretty simple what Sam Houston want to do. They want to run the football. This group is top 20 in America in rushing yards per game. They want to put the ball on the ground. They don't want to put their quarterback in a lot of positions. They probably want to throw the ball 15 to 20 times a game. They want to run for 300 yards. They had 5 yards of play against Texas State. Should be able to move the ball here against a UTEP run defense that can't stop anybody. They're averaging, as far as giving up, nearly, I believe, 5 yards a carry. UTEP can't run the ball either. There's really nothing this offense can do. Dana DeMel's got a bad football team. They're 0-4, really haven't been close in any game. This is a group that lost to Southern Utah, Drew. Not a very good football team. And I don't believe Dana DeMel's even there. I think he may have actually even left, I think. So them going to the Mountain West isn't going to get any easier. Sam Houston's been a good football team. I had this number more towards 14. So I thought there was a little bit of value on the Bearcats here. They've been a pretty good football team in Division I so far. Always a pretty good defense as well. If you can find a 10 out there, there's even a 9.5, I think, in the market. So Sam Houston looks pretty strong here.
Like the breakdown, Jeff. And yeah, you bring up, heading to the Mountain West. I mean, I guess it should be a nice setting there on Thursday night. They're in the Sun Bowl in El Paso. But I mean, this kind of shifting in conferences, does it factor to your handicapping at all, or it's just kind of like talking points for the future?
No, it doesn't matter to me. I guess, again, yeah, talking points is cool. But listen, I'm also the same person that says, like, I don't care. Like, if you're a good football team, going on the road doesn't matter to me. Like, it just doesn't really mean much. You look at like a group like Indiana, they're one of the best ATS teams in the country. They've been great on the road. So like, there's a lot of things guys look at that I don't really look at. Where a team is playing or what time they're playing or what conference they're in just doesn't mean anything to me.
At Jeff Nadu breaking it down. I'm Drew Martin Betts. This is Every game on the board for week 6 as we flip the script here to Friday, October 4th, Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State. 48.5 being the total, minus 16 in the hook. That's Jack State as the road favorite. Kennesaw State, running that option style attack. I didn't think Jacksonville State was off to that great of a start. Now they're having to lay 16 on the road. Rich Rod as the head coach here, Jeff. And anything first game up on Friday?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with just the opponent here. I mean, you look at Kennesaw, Drew. I mean, they've had 4 games. They have 4 touchdowns on the season. They can't move the ball. I mean, they're giving up, they're scoring just 12 points a game. This has been a rough team. They're actually a group, Drew, that I don't believe has converted. I might be wrong. I don't think they've converted I want to say field goal, but I could be wrong. I gotta go back and look. But this offense has been putrid. They can't move the ball. Jacksonville State, as you alluded to, it's been a tough schedule. I mean, they played Coastal Carolina, who's really good. Louisville, who's obviously very good. They give up a lot of points to Eastern Michigan. By the way, Drew, an Eastern Michigan team that's 5-0 against the spread. They then come back last week, face a bad opponent, and roll 44-7, which is kind of where I have this game. This is another team. Want to run the football. The offense has been good. It's been efficient. Tyler Huff last week is very efficient. And this is a defense I think is improving. I have Kennesaw as the worst team in the country outside of Kent State. I think Southern Miss is even better, and Jacksonville blew them out. This should be a decent respite in the schedule for Jacksonville State after a tough start. I had this as 17 and a half, so anything under that I thought was a pretty decent play. Kennesaw is struggling. We haven't seen the same success that Kennesaw has had with like a Jacksonville State. They had a lot of success. Sam Houston was pretty good. Kennesaw has really struggled.
Yeah, sounds like Fade City on Kennesaw State as we'll move down the list here. 309, 310, Houston and TCU. Battle for Texas here. Minus 16 in the hook again. That's TCU as the home favorite this time. 50-52 being the total here. Jeff, TCU off of that nice win last week, but that Iron Skillet game against SMU, that was a wild one. They were on the wrong side of that. Houston off to a little bit of a rough start. Are you liking anything in this one in Fort Worth?
Yeah, we just talked about a horrible offense in Kennesaw. Houston's been worse. Houston is the worst offense in America, 10 points a game. They just don't move the ball. Donovan Smith is really not worked out. Willie Fritz and that group want to stay in the game through defense. That said, Drew, you look at the last 2 games. They've been outscored 54-0. Haven't scored a point over the last 2 games. I can understand. I mean, Iowa State's a good defense, but Cincinnati doesn't exactly look like the 85 Bears. I mean, this offense has really, really struggled. We saw them struggle against Houston. We saw them struggle against Oklahoma. That said, you should be able to move the ball here. I mean, TCU can't stop anybody. You alluded to that SMU game. They gave up 66 in that game. A Kansas team who hasn't been able to move the ball scored 27 last week. Gave up 35 to UCF and lost the game. Gave up 27 to Stanford. I feel like Houston should be able to get 20 in this game, but expecting this group to even put possessions together has been a real challenge. I kind of alluded to my own people that, if I can get a 17 or higher in this game, I might back Houston, but I've always been told you can't put money on bad teams. I'm not running to do it here. Houston's team total is 17.5. If they can't get to 20 against this team, I don't think they're ever going to, but a lot of lukewarm games to start the week here, Drew, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, we got some better ones coming up, guys. Just a couple things real quick, Jeff. Sonny Dykes, Willie Fritz, you brought up the kind of coaching matchup here. First off, Sonny Dykes got thrown out of the Iron Skillet game. I've never seen a head coach get thrown out of a game, but it happened there. And Willie Fritz for Houston, I just wanted to throw something out and get your opinion. I think he's more of the coach to build up the program from the bottom up. We saw it at Georgia Southern. We saw it at Tulane. It takes 4 or 5 years. Therefore, I don't think he's going to change a whole lot just because early on in his tenure at Houston, it's not going great. I think he's building for the future. So therefore, I'm not so sure Houston is really a bet on right now, Jeff.
No, that's a great point. And you talk about change. You talk about kind of just where teams are. I mean, you look at a team like Florida State. They're not going to just flip a script and figure out how to do things. I think they're kind of mired in where they are. And I think that's a good point by you. You look at Houston. I mean, for 2025, from a recruiting standpoint, 45th. I mean, they've had a better recruiting class than North Carolina, Arizona. They're right at the level of like Utah, Texas Tech, Pittsburgh. So they're in there and they have a bunch of recruits coming in. It's going to take some time. And you're right. They kind of are who they are. I think next year, I look at a team like Stanford. Last year, Stanford wasn't good. They had one or two games where they won,
Right.
but they were there in certain games. They sucked. And then you look at this year, they're competitive. They're competitive in a lot of games. They're winning games. Maybe they shouldn't. I think that's where Houston is. Houston will struggle. They'll have the occasional game like against Oklahoma where they play hard. They'll win a game or two. Maybe they shouldn't. And next year, I think where they take a next step forward. And that's what a good coach does. Because by year 3, you're either going to get fired or you're going to stay. And Willie Fritz ain't going to get fired. He's a good coach. He'll figure things out.
Moving down the list here, Michigan State and Oregon up next, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific. We're seeing Oregon, the Ducks, minus 24 in Eugene, 52.5 being the total. A Big Ten matchup here, Friday Night Lights, Jeff.
Yeah, this is about where I'd put this number. I thought it was tough. I think if you're looking at it, though, I mean, a lot of people relate it to last week due to the fact that Michigan State got blown the hell out by Ohio State. Here's the issue, though. Ohio State has blown a lot of teams out this year. Oregon hasn't. Oregon hasn't blown anybody out, Drew. Throw in that they got Ohio State on deck next week. Gun to my head, I think Michigan State's probably worth a look here. I think their quarterback's good enough. Karan Lynch, I think, is a good enough running back. I think they can move the ball and score like 17 points in this game. I kind of relate this to last week. I mean, Oregon played a pretty bad UCLA team and only won by 21. I think Michigan State's better. This is a big game for Michigan State in terms of kind of where they think their program is. If you kind of follow up last week's performance with another ugly one, like 38-7, you got to wonder where they are. And at 38-7, you're still got the backdoor possibility there, Drew. If you can get a 24.5 on this game, I would have some interest in Michigan State because, quite frankly, I don't think Oregon cares that much about blowing teams out. We've seen this bigger playoff where winning by 50 just doesn't matter, right? The goal is win the Big Ten. We don't care about how much. They could even lose next week to Ohio State, and they're still involved in a playoff. That's where these margin of victories aren't important. That said, if you're in Indiana, you want to win by as much as you can every time because the Big Ten is so colluded with all these different teams. You need to win and you need to make statements. You look, though, at Oregon. I mean, they just haven't really done this much. I'll grab 24.5 if I can find it with the Spartans.
Yeah, tipping my cap to you, Jeff. That's very important out there, guys. If you're new to betting college football, like the profile of bet and how teams perform in that is very important. If you're looking to lay 24, you want to go look at how they face teams in this like point spread range. Are they looking to kind of blow teams out and then kind of go from there? It does matter kind of replicating that is what I'm getting at. We got another late night one here, 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday night, Jeff. Syracuse and UNLV before we get to the Saturday card. It is the Running Rebels, -6 in the hook, 58.5 being the total. This is in Las Vegas. Very intriguing matchup. I mean, Syracuse, UNLV, their quarterback left with the NIL thing. The backup comes in. He looks great. I mean, I guess only one start, though. This is a different element, though, against Syracuse, who has played some decent football. So Syracuse, UNLV, Friday night here, Jeff.
Who recently, one of the greatest gamblers in the history of Las Vegas passed away, Archie Karras. He's a guy that if you ever get the opportunity to look into, he is a fascinating guy. And he always talked about how money meant nothing to him. He didn't care about money. So gambling $40-50 million on a weekend meant nothing. Now, I would never tell anyone to take those same principles and use them. But in this game, I'm doing what the proverbial thought is of going all in. I'm big on Syracuse in this game. I think this is a prototypical spot where we're going to learn a lot about UNLV. And there's a couple of things that I don't like about UNLV. Look, their defense has been really good, right? That said, they're a bend but don't break defense to me. You know, you look at this pass defense. It's been good. It's not great. 88th nationally. Well, now you got to get the top quarterback in the country from a passing yard standpoint coming in. This is Syracuse team that people are down on. You know, they've been kind of average this year. You have a UNLV team in the market that is about as high as it gets, and I want to sell at the highest level, right? What did we last see? They rolled. You know, they crushed Fresno. Mikey Keene moved the ball, though. I mean, UNLV gave up 346 yards, 316 through the air, penalties, interceptions. I'm just hoping Kyle McCord doesn't turn the ball over. That said, the fact that this number is only 6.5, very, very, very important to me. This has not gotten a 7 for a proverbial long period of time. 75% of the money coming in being bet on the game is actually on the Qs. I think this is very telling. Give me Qs here.
All right, going with the orange in Las Vegas. We got top of the card on Saturday, guys, October 5th, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, going down in rotation order, 313, 314, Pittsburgh and UNC. We are seeing Pitt -3 pretty much across the board, 64 being the total in Chapel Hill here, Jeff.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's been a fun team this year. You got to be happy with them if you're a fan. Eli Holston's been really good. He's been throwing the ball at a high level. I don't really know what to make of North Carolina. I think, as usual, they're not backable from a defensive standpoint. 94th in passing yards allowed. They've really struggled to get stops. They've struggled to get stops really at every level. I don't like their quarterback much, and I feel like if you can do a decent job against the run against this Hampton, you're going to do okay. Pittsburgh's 35th in rushing defense. I think they can keep Hampton kind of in line here. Pittsburgh's been a good team. They're playing in a lot of revenge here. They lost this game last year, 41-24, I believe. Short and sweet here. Pittsburgh off a bye. UNC had to kind of fight. They lost, blew a big lead against Duke, their arch rival. Now they have to come right back and play a team off a bye who's playing well in Pittsburgh. I like Pitt here.
Next one up, Jeff, 315, 316, UCF in Florida. We are seeing UCF. This is a flip favorite, by the way. Florida opened as the favorite. Now it's UCF -2 and a hook. 61.5 being the total in the Swamp. Orlando to Gainesville, it's about an hour and a half drive. This is going to be a wild atmosphere here. UCF, Florida, UCF laying 2.5. This is 7:45 at night in the Swamp, Jeff.
I haven't given them a lot of credit, but I'll give Colorado a lot of credit last week. They were terrific against UCF. They couldn't stop the run, and Colorado checked the boxes there. I mean, this high-level run offense for UCF only had 128 rushing yards. Very impressive stuff. But you look at UCF, turn the ball over 4 times. I mean, one of them was in the red zone. I mean, this team beat themselves. I think they should be a favorite against Florida. I think they're a better team than Florida. I don't expect Florida to do what they did, what Colorado did last week. This Florida team's really struggled on the ground. They're giving up 4.2 yards a carry, nearly 190 yards a game. They've got kind of beat up at times on the ground. I'll expect kind of UCF to bounce back. I'll tell you what, I don't really have any interest in a side here. Maybe look towards an over. I had an over last week with UCF Colorado. It came through. I'd kind of look maybe towards backing that again. I think this is a great over spot. 2 teams that should move the ball and both play pretty fast and have competent quarterback play.
Yeah, the Gators offense has gotten a little bit better. I'm with you. I mean, nice call on that UCF Colorado over. That was pretty much a no-doubter, guys. Every game on the board. We are hitting them all. Week 5, we hit them all each and every week. We got our leadoff hitter here, Jeff Nadu, at Jeff Nadu on Twitter. He's got the Sit Down podcast as well, talking all things cartel activity. He's got what the former mafia, stuff like that. Always a good one. So check that out. The Sit Down podcast right here on the Every Game on the Board podcast, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at. Every Game on the Board. ECU in Charlotte up next, Jeff. -8 to as high as -9. That is the Pirates as the road favorite. 47 being the total. Pirates at 49ers here from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, I really like ECU. I mean, they're a good defensive team. They're a pretty good offensive team. The only issue, Drew, is They have 16 turnovers this season. That's the most in America. They're going to beat themselves. They're going to throw a lot of stupid interceptions. They're going to fumble the ball at the worst times. Charlotte's not very good. They got off the schneid last week, finally. Another 1-point win. They have 2 1-point wins this season. One against Rice, one against Gardner-Webb. Big step up here. These are kind of, I don't know about rivals, but, in-state teams. I think ECU is clearly the better football team. And if you're an ECU, these are the games you have to have. They have a couple of games coming up they have to get because they got to play Army. They got to play Navy. They got to play North Texas. They have to have this one. Am I laying to run over a touchdown with them? Not really, but I could see this like 31-17. My whole issue with ECU is just the turnover problems. I think if they can just keep this, maybe 1 or 2 turnovers that aren't going to be horrible ones, as long as this stays under 10, I probably have some interest in a Pirates here. But this team can get irritating to back.
Next one up, Jeff, we got SMU and Louisville. Louisville minus 7-point home favorites off of their first loss, both straight up and ATS against Notre Dame last week. We'll see how they bounce back. 56.5 being the total. SMU at Louisville here, Jeff.
Yeah, big barometer game for SMU because they have some big wins. Obviously they beat TCU, beat Florida State, but they're not really big wins. For the program, they're big wins, but those are not great football teams. This is a road game against a ranked opponent. They've played one ranked opponent this year and lost 18-15, but they have a quarterback now. I was pressing them to go with Kevin Jennings. He's a better quarterback, and he has been very effective. Last couple of games, 66 and 42 points. This defensive line is tough. I think they may have a better defense overall than Louisville. 7 seemed like too many here. I put this at like 4 or 5. That's a little high even. I think SMU's real. I think they've made it clear with Kevin Jennings. They're a legit football team. And I'm not going to knock Louisville. I could see a game where this is kind of just back and forth, where it's going to be about what team do I trust to get a stop late. We saw that Louisville could never kind of do what they could do against a good Notre Dame team. Now you're laying 7 points against a good offense with a good, strong defensive line. I would grab SMU at the points here, personally.
Moving down the list, 3:30 Eastern here on ABC. We got SEC Battle of Brothers, Deep South's oldest rivalry, Auburn and Georgia. Bulldogs minus 24 at home, 52.5 being the total in Athens, Georgia, Jeff.
Yeah, you mentioned to me earlier a team, I forget who it was that you don't want to back. It was Houston, right? I kind of feel that way about Auburn, no offense. I think you see some of the things going on, with Hugh Freeze, with former players and things like that. Peyton Thorne throwing weird interceptions. Maybe they want to go with someone else. Now you got to go play Georgia off a loss on the road. Seems like kind of circle the wagons time. Auburn's been disappointing. I don't know what that performance was against Cal a couple of weeks ago. Never really got going against Arkansas, who, they had 431 yards, Auburn, but couldn't score. Turnovers are problems for them. It doesn't seem like a good spot. I would lean on Georgia. You have to wonder kind of where their heads are, especially with maybe a lame duck coach. They're 2-3 all of a sudden. They've kind of lost some games. Maybe they felt they could have won. I lean Georgia here.
Jeff, you bring up lame duck coach. Have we gotten to a point in college football where it's just like some of these coaching carousels? Like, I'm starting to hear that as well, like up on to the next. But at some point, you got to ride some of these guys out, whether it be Billy Napier, Hugh Freeze. Do you have anything against that, or you think that's just the way we're going in college football?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm probably not a good person to ask because, like, Doug Peterson won the Eagles a Super Bowl and was fired a year later. I think if you're like, teams in the SEC, you expect, right away a team to be good. And, I thought U was decent last year. They lost in the bowl game, but I feel like they expect down at Auburn to be, in the running every year. I don't know if Hugh Freeze, I guess we'll have to see. It seems like some things off the field could be problematic. If I'm them, I would look towards like a Signetti if you're going to make a move. He's a guy I really like at Indiana, but I don't know. We'll see. I agree with you. You probably have to stick with one of these guys for a year or two more, but It seems like these SEC teams figure, we expect to be, in the running every year.
Yeah, for sure, man. As we got 323, 324 up next, 1 o'clock Eastern kick in Birmingham, Alabama. It's UAB hosting Tulane. The Green Wave, 15-point road favorites, 55.5 being the total here, Jeff.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, I don't know how to figure Tulane out. I just don't get them. I thought last week, I thought that would be a great spot. South Florida would be back and forth, and maybe I just undervalued Tulane's defense. I don't know, but South Florida just couldn't get going anything. 3.8 yards of play. They were just lost. I don't know. I don't know what to make. They had 20 less plays than Tulane. It was just an ugly game. Tulane is just a good program. It really doesn't matter who the coach is. It's been a long year so far for Trent Dilfer. I think he's a guy that, what the hell are you building there? This team can't move the ball either. Can't think that they're going to move the ball here. Kind of lukewarm on this one. I'd probably lean towards laying it. UAB looks kind of lost right now.
Heading to the ACC up next. It used to be a primetime matchup here, Clemson and Florida State. We've seen Florida State obviously have a rough go of it this season, but Clemson, the ultimate equalizer here, guys, -14 to as high as -15 road favorites, 48 being the total in Tallahassee. It's Clemson at Florida State.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't really want to step in front of Clemson right now. This team looks like, they don't play Miami, unfortunately, but that could be a great ACC final. That could be fun. Clemson's rolling right now. They've scored 66, 59, and 40 over the last 3 games. And outside of that Georgia loss, they've been perfect. They're running the ball effectively. The quarterback's been good. Klubnik, he's doing enough. Big play offense. I don't want to step in front of them. Florida State is not backable, in my opinion. Could they surprise? I guess possibly, but I'm not looking to step in front of the Tigers right now at any level.
I'm with you. Clemson are passing that one. Fade City on FSU. Couple games left. We'll get a best bet out of Jeff at Jeff Nadu on Twitter. We got Mississippi and South Carolina up next. Ole Miss -9 in the hook on the road. 53.5 being the total. The Rebels at the Gamecocks from South Carolina here, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm looking over here. I'd expect Ole Miss bounces back. Just a great performance from Kentucky last week. Ole Miss scored like 5 minutes into the game. They went up 7-0. Looked like they were going to just score 50 yet again. And that was it. Their offense just couldn't get going. 2 straight road games here. I think this is more of a breakable defense. South Carolina at times has had no issue playing up and down. They had a high-scoring game with LSU, put up a lot of yards, gave up a lot of yards in that game. I think Ole Miss kind of gets back to normal here. 53 seemed a little low. I think that's one of the reasons this one's been bet up a little bit from 51. A lot of sharp money's come in on South Carolina. Maybe the 2 road games catch up. Maybe Ole Miss was a little bit of a phony. I'm kind of irritated. Jackson Dart looked great kind of to start the season, and he still does. He's got 1,800 yards. He only has 2 interceptions, but he wasn't good enough last week. The Ole Miss offensive line didn't exactly help him. I think the side's probably right. I like the over a little bit. I could see this like 31-24, 33-27, something like that.
Sure, Jeff. Guys, we got 1 game left on the rotation. We'll bring in Mid-Major Matt and Robbie Vino tomorrow to break down the rest of the Week 6 slate here in college football, wherever you're downloading your podcast at. Every game on the board. We got Old Dominion in Coastal Carolina up next, Jeff. The Chanticleer is -5 in the hook, -5 at home, both available here. 54 being the total. The Monarchs and the Chanticleers to end it.
Yeah, Chanticleers have been pretty good. Coming off a loss to Virginia, they're off a bye. That's definitely a step up of competition for them. This isn't though. Old Dominion's not great. Just kind of a middling team who are 5-5-ish every year. Old Dominion coming off a nice win though against Bowling Green, a Bowling Green team that had been playing well. Old Dominion want to run the football. I feel like you can move the ball against Coastal. I didn't have much in this one. A game that I don't really have much on. I probably about where I'd put the number. I hate to kind of end it on this one, but it's about lukewarm to me, about where I have it.
Okay, fair enough, Jeff. Great stuff as always at Jeff Nadu. We got a best bet, most confident play you want to throw out there to the listeners, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll go back to one we talked about Friday night. Give me Syracuse plus 6.5. UNLV's been tough. They've been a freight train, but this is a good passing offense for Syracuse. I'll believe that 88th passing defense in UNLV will kind of struggle a little bit here. They haven't exactly been tested, really. And I'll give it to them. They played well last week, but it seemed like that one was a little personal for them. Can they do that 2 weeks in a row? Kansas doesn't look like the same offense. Houston's a mess. Utah Tech, who cares? They're going to be really tested in this game. I think Kyle McCord can go out there and surprise. I think at worst, this is like a field goal game. Give me Q's plus 6.5.
6.5 available across the board. That is Jeff Nadu. Follow him on social media at Jeff Nadu. He's got the Sit Down podcast talking all things gray area of life, if you will, and right here on the Every Game on the Board podcast, wherever you're downloading your podcast at. If you could smash that like button, comment, let us know you're listening. That all helps grow the show, guys. Rate, like the podcast as well. Jeff, anything else you want to throw out there? What you got going on? Anything, man? The floor is yours.
No, I appreciate you having me as always. Obviously, these are good for people. You know, not everybody has the ability to look up and look into every game. And, it's week to week. You know, just take it one play at a time.
Absolutely, Jeff. So, thanks, buddy. Hey, have a great weekend. We'll be back next week, guys. And until then, cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in.